Press live. There we go. Okay, so we're live now. Thank you very much. We do this on a weekly basis. Brian White is actually in China right now. He's attending the auto show there. We're going to look forward to his updates shortly. So in addition to Nick Gibbs here, it's co-streaming at Investing Against the Grain, we have Randy Kirk. He has his YouTube channel called Randy Kirk. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Howdy.
All right, let's get started with the breaking news right now. Powell is up there. He's basically saying a lot of things about the economy and how things are up in the air. And he's saying that it's his goals have been pushed back. Nick, why don't you give us an update of what's happening?
Yeah, so I'm listening to it live in the background right now. So this is all going on right now. But the big question that was just posed to Powell was, would the Fed intervene if the stock market plummets? Stupid question, in my opinion. The stock market has plummeted and the Fed did not intervene. It's also not one of their mandates, but Jerome Powell did say no, and he said with an explanation. So right now he's actually explaining it. But clearly the markets, I think they do tend to move when Powell speaks, but this downward movement I think we see right now is potentially, a lot of people thought that there would be a Fed put in the markets, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't think it's so much the Fed put that we're seeing this sell-off as much as I think people anticipate. Okay, he's not exactly being kind to the White House right now with everything he's saying. There's going to be a rebuttal. I can almost guarantee you before the end of the day, Trump will rebut on why Jerome Powell is an idiot and doesn't know what he's doing. So I think that's kind of what we see in the market right now. Is just more of this uncertainty with the Fed, with the White House, with tariffs. So I'll stop there. I don't know if you guys have any other points of view, but it is definitely quote unquote tanking the market. Tesla's down 5%. Oh, you have it right there. 5% on this news for no other reason.
Yeah, it was clearly Powell tanking. I mean, the market was down a little bit over the whole NVIDIA thing and whatnot already. I think that I didn't hear as much of it as you did, but the part that I did hear was the last thing you want to hear from your Fed president. Oh yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I mean, you're looking for your Fed president to smooth over the uncertainty, or not to lie about it, or to be anything less than straightforward. There is uncertainty, but you need the Fed to be the guy who says, but this can be handled, or that we know what we're doing, or to give folks a sense of calm.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. What did he say? He said that car company supply chains likely to be disrupted for years, which could lead to inflation persistence.
Yeah. Like comments like that are... there's so much nuance that has to come up when it talks about tariffs. Like I always hear people talk about it's inflationary. It can be. I always hear people talk about it's going to take years to build in America with manufacturing. It could. I always hear it's going to be more expensive to build in the United States. It could. It depends, because it also could not. Right? Tesla's a perfect example of why it doesn't have to be inflationary. It doesn't have to take a long time. When we were going through COVID, we saw factories in record-breaking time building ventilators, setting up manufacturing for masks. Like we saw lots of things happen when there's a, like going to the moon type reason behind it. And so I think it just really depends. And the truth is more in the messy middle. It's not exactly what Trump is saying. It's not exactly what the counterpoints are saying. Even with like tariffs in general, it's not like it's all going to go to the end consumer. None of it might go to end consumer. It might all go to end consumer. But the reality is companies like Walmart is going to try to work within their supply chain to have everybody kind of take a brunt of this hit. Instead of it being death by one cut, hey, everybody takes a little pain for all of us to have long-term gains. Right, so we can all work together, keep our supply chains going, keep your manufacturing facilities up and running, and we can all, help out. If not, I might have to look at another manufacturer to help me out with this part or this piece. And so it's just it's not, you can't just say it's inflationary. You can't say it's not inflationary. It's a messy middle. But I think with what Jerome Powell he should have, I think, more of a understanding of his voice and the impact it has. And by saying that it's going to have a massive disruption, it doesn't have to. It might take a while for people to figure out what the new sources are, but that does not inherently mean prices have to go up. It does not.
And he's in such a position again where he can't allow the words to be misconstrued, because the price going up is not inflation. The price going up is the price going up. And he was perfectly happy 4 years ago to talk about transitory. Well, when the price goes up because of a tariff, that is the definition of something that is transitory. It's a one-time event. It's not going to repeat in the future, and it doesn't cause any other prices to go up because of it. So it's 100% transitory. It is a price increase. And to suggest that there's anything inflationary about it is just confuses people about the difference between the two words. Moreover, what he's not taking into consideration is all of the disinflationary things that are taking place at the same time, which happened in the first Trump administration, which they're working on to duplicate now, which in fact turned out with the Fed was sitting there, hey, how can we get up to 2% inflation? It wasn't a problem of getting down to 2% inflation.
Okay. Well, I think the problem is, for bringing back the Tesla and auto business, is that it's looking like, based on the comments right now, that interest rates are not going to fall, or it's going to take longer to fall. And that's important for auto business. But yesterday, 2 days ago, this is what President Trump said about the auto business and tariffs.
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Yeah, let me pause it there. But basically, he's recognizing, right, that auto businesses will need some time. He's going to back down on that, and they're going to give them a exemption. So they're not as dire as everybody thought that they would be. But if Powell doesn't reduce interest rates, then it's still going to be, or, we're still not in the risk-on environment maybe by the end of this year. Unless, again, things can change very, very quickly. But this is just his comments right now.
Yeah, let me disagree with you real quick. Jerome Powell does not affect the interest rate when it comes to vehicles. He affects the prime rate. All right. All these other functions like housing or vehicles, they use that as kind of a baseline to reflect what their interest rates are going to be. But just like houses right now, you can go buy a house right now with a 5% interest rate, even though the rates are actually 6.57. Why? Because builders are buying down the rates for the buyers. Tesla is doing very similar things right now with interest rates for the vehicles. So that doesn't really matter. Like the rates when it comes to selling vehicles, I don't think is a big issue right now. In fact, I almost say it's a non-issue, especially in China. In China, they're offering 0% rates, right? So that is not an issue here. I think the bigger issue is that people are seeing their portfolios cut in half and they don't feel good and they're worried. And when people are worried, you tend to pull back on your spending. But even with that said, today's numbers indicate no one is worried about spending. People are spending like crazy.
Yeah,
even X autos.
Yeah, and you've got the bonds right now are actually the 10-year is down 4 basis points on this news as well. And so to say that the interest rates are not going to come down, I think, is also not correct. We could easily be back down into 3s within days, depending on what people's concerns are about the economy. As the economy deflates, if the economy starts to go down to 0 or a little bit under 0% in terms of GDP increases, then that's going to take that the interest rates will come down. And these are the bond interest rates are what really determine your mortgage rate. The bond interest rates are what determine your car rates. The only thing that the Fed rate really has is the overnight rate that the banks pay. The banks have to pay the Fed in order to get their funds. Yes, it impacts. Everybody looks at it. You pay attention to it. If you're in business, you might be paying so many percent over the Fed rate. That's one way, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're paying some percentage over the Treasury bonds. So the bonds are way more important. They're controlling everything right now. Always pay attention to the 10-year because that's what everybody's paying attention to right now.
Okay. Do you guys want to listen to what Elon Musk said about tariffs? Is that appropriate right now? Yeah. So Elon was interviewed by Joe Rogan, I don't know when, maybe I think earlier this year, and he was already warning about how important it is for manufacturers that tariffs are done in a kind of a soft, short way. That's what he says. And the reason I'm playing this is because you've got Powell now saying that auto businesses are going to be impacted for years. We don't know yet if that's the case or not, but this is listen to what Elon actually said.
Electrical repair, your own plumbing, everything yourself, everything.
Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning.
What are your thoughts on tariffs? I know that's very controversial to even people, economists. They disagree. Some agree. Some think it's a good idea. Some think it's a terrible idea. What do you think?
I think you need to be careful with tariffs. I deal a lot with like supply chain issues. You know, like the global automotive supply chain for Tesla, for example, is incredibly complex. So when there are sudden changes in tariffs, then you're like, well, we've got a factory like somewhere else that's making a part that goes into the car. Now that suddenly, if that part's suddenly twice as expensive, it like messes everything up, you know. So, you want to be have tariffs be predictable, so that companies can adjust their supply chain. I mean, I think companies are more than happy to increase manufacturing in America. It's just that you can't do it instantly. So if you put up giant tariffs immediately and don't give companies a chance to build factories in America, like because you got to move atoms. Like you've got to build a building, you've got to install equipment, you've got to train people. Like that doesn't happen instantly. So you just got you want to have for tariffs. You want to have a ramp so that companies can adjust. And build the factories and train the people and get the equipment in place. Otherwise, you basically just shock the system and it breaks or bad things happen. So I'm against like sudden giant tariffs because it's an impossible response if you've got to move 1,000 tons of equipment. You can just, or in some cases, collectively millions of tons of equipment. You just can't do that overnight. It's literally impossible. So I think we want to be thoughtful about tariffs and give companies a ramp. I mean, I do generally agree that America should do more manufacturing. I'm a big manufacturing guy. I love manufacturing. So I've spent a lot of time in the factory.
Well, you've talked openly about the difficulty.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pause it there. What's your thoughts about what he said?
So I've been in this situation, I can't tell you how many millions of times in my 30 years as a manufacturer. I've manufactured all over. I've manufactured products all over the world. I have shipped products all over the world. I have dealt with tariffs. I've dealt with all of the non-tariff restrictions that people talk about in terms of currency revaluations, in terms of, restrictions on what you can sell in country, just in terms of, the cost of labor, the cost of packaging, all kinds of reasons why you can or can't compete either selling into a country or in the United States unless you're buying from a low labor country. I've dealt with that my entire adult life. What Elon is saying is correct. You cannot do it overnight, and it's way better if you have time to be able to deal with the situation. Having said that, if you are faced with the situation, if President Trump didn't back down, which apparently he's going to, you will find a way. You will move as fast as you possibly can to solve the issue. And if it takes you 3 months, it takes you 3 months. If it takes you 6 months, it takes you 6 months. But you will. I love to use the example of the Santa Monica Freeway that crumbled about 3 miles from my home when I was living in West LA during the earthquake. And they put out a bid and they said, okay, you won the bid. Now, if you do it in 6 months, you'll get this much money. If you do it in 5 months, you'll get this much money. If you do it in 4 months, you'll get this much money. If you do it in 3 months, you'll get this much money. They did it in 3 months because they were going to get that big bonus. So you turn loose the people that want to make a bunch of money, and you find a way to get it done fast.
Herbert, everything Elon said is correct. But that's assuming that we live in a vacuum, and the world's not a vacuum. And so when you think about what Trump is doing, I want to use an analogy for you. About a year ago, Elon was telling his energy team, his supercharging team, that they need to let go of X amount of people. He said it repeatedly in emails that were eventually leaked. They didn't do it. They didn't do enough of it. And so Elon finally said, okay, the whole department's gone. Everyone's gone. And then he started to slowly hire people back. To me, that's very analogous to what's happening right now, because if Trump did not say, hey, these are the new tariffs, they're big, they're crazy, they're stupid, but these are what they are. That's the same way Elon fired everybody. Because the countries will move slow. They won't go fast. They'll try to drag things out until the next administration is in, just to delay it. And so what Trump did was he created a forcing mechanism. And now he's slowly adding parts back to the vehicle. He's slowly hiring people back by saying, okay, hey, Mexico, hey, Canada, you put troops at the border. Okay, I'll give you some extra time. You're showing me you're moving towards the right direction. You're actually moving atoms. You're actually doing things to move toward. You're not just saying words. You're doing actions. And so that's how I see this. What Elon's saying is right. But what Elon doesn't talk about in that at all is, well, how do you incentivize the people to do the things? And that's a whole different equation. And Elon, I mean, you saw the emails. He literally 3 emails. He's asking, hey, I need you to lean out. I need you to have all right, you know what? I'll do it. Everyone's gone. You're all gone. And everybody's freaking out. No more supercharging, all that. And no, instead, actually, we have a very lean team, very good team. It's growing. But sometimes you need to do things that will force people to move. And even within Tesla, those people weren't moving.
Yep. Okay. Keep us updated on what's happening with Powell. If anything new comes up, is there anything else there that we want to cover, or should we move on Tesla and what's coming in the next month?
Yeah, let's go on next month. Okay. Long and short, the market is going to keep going down until Powell stops talking.
Yeah, that's what it looks like it's happening right now. Okay, so we'll keep a watch on that. And of course, Tesla stock is back down. Where are we now?
239.
239. 240. Yeah.
239.
So it went down $14 today. This is the kind of thing we've been seeing for the last month, right? Roller coaster, up and down, for one reason or another. Lots of freaking out. And we have the earnings call called the company update on Tuesday, very, very soon. So what do you guys think needs to happen for what's going to happen at that earnings call? What's going to happen to the stock in the near term?
Well,
go ahead. You first. You should ask that, because I was on last night with a dear friend of mine who said that they believe the stock will keep going up every day into earnings, not by a lot, but $1 here, $2
Randy,
there.
You actually thought that? Yeah.
Nick, on the other hand, thought a little differently.
Okay. Yeah, and you predicted what Powell was going to say too, right?
Hey, it was down before Powell started speaking.
Okay, Nick. Okay, interesting. Let's hear both of your opinions. So let's go with you, Nick. Yeah.
I think we pretty much stay in this range bound until the earnings call, and I think we're going to go lower unless Elon says something new, unless we get some good guidance, unless I was telling Randy last night, I think in order for the stock to go up, we need to hear something new. It can't be the same things that he said last quarter and the quarter before that. We need something new. Otherwise, right now, the only reason I even think we're at 239 is because of people like the 3 of us who are sitting here saying we are not selling or doing anything, especially not before June. And so anything meaningful towards June, what the rollout will look like, future projections, new models. If he says that there are no new models and it's just going to be a stripped down version, I think the stock goes down. But in my opinion, it's actually bullish because that just shows you how confident they are with the FSD. And really, in my opinion, it's like if you're 100% confident FSD, you don't need any other form factor. You got a 2-seater, you got 3-seater, 4-seater, 5-seater, 6-seater, 7-seater. Like you got everything. You got truck, you got the van coming. So I think that we're going to pretty much stay steady up until that earnings call. And I think after that earnings call, we're going to be testing lows, like 200 maybe, or we're going to be 280, 290.
And so what you're saying, it's one or the other? Yeah.
It's one or the other. Yeah.
Okay.
We do not come out of this flat.
Okay, so I always try to remind people that I make a lot of predictions, a lot of projections, especially long-term projections. The news can always change anything. I don't care how good your analysis is. I encourage people to, whether it's listening to Nick or whether it's listening to me, listen to the analysis under how we're getting to the number as opposed to the number itself. And so the analysis that I had going into the earnings call was that and again, I basically borrowed this from Brian Wong. I bought his analysis, which says the bad news is all in. So the bad news about Tesla, I think, was all in. The news that's come this morning was additional. So who would have thought that there would be an issue with, getting some product out of China for both the Cybercab and the
that could be very, very likely false, completely false.
It may be completely false, but it's a knee jerk. So in addition to the market being generally down this morning, you had that little bit of bad news, which is really not consequential, but it was enough to give people a reason to sell off this morning. I think that's what happened. So you've got that happening. It's news. It's new news. Then you add on the NVIDIA news, and you add on this additional news with Powell speaking. And these are not something you can predict or project. The news could have been the opposite. It could have been, we had opposite news. We had China saying this morning, hey, appoint an emissary, just one person. We just want to deal with one person, and we'll start talks. And also stop talking so much crap. And so if they're willing to do those things, then we might be in talks with China. Well, that would be really good news. And absent anything else, we might be moving up today as opposed to down. So my theory was only that moving into the earnings, with all the bad news out of the way, we would be moving up slightly, not a ton, a few points a day into Tuesday because of basically moving past whatever bad news was out there. Oh, and afterwards, I pretty much agree with Nick. The only difference I'd say between me and Nick is what I've seen over the years is if the conference doesn't go, if the call doesn't go well and we have a sell-off, there's usually a sell-off for about 2 to 3 days. And then we go back and we're beyond where we were at the time of the meeting about 3 to 4 days out.
Mm-hmm.
Herbert, what's your take?
Well, so I don't have any guesses on short-term movements, but I think the comments I'll make is that, based on the things that Elon has been saying as of yesterday, and we had the guy who's in charge of AI, Tesla AI labeling, just being very, very positive about the 50,000 miles that Tesla FSC unsupervised is doing. That was just yesterday. This is like the last few days. It's unlikely at this point that in a week we're going to hear something very negative about robotaxi at this point, or the plans for June, right? I mean, everything we've been hearing, even up to as of yesterday, has been very positive.
100%.
So, yeah. So at this point, I'm not expecting any kind of major negative news about June. And so if that's the case, then like you say, Nick, maybe they'll react to we don't get the Model 2. But it'll be temporary, and then they'll come back because people will still think that they will reiterate that June is on track, which is literally next month, right? And that is the thing that's going to turn everything on a dime. Having said that, again, I've been very cautious about this. I think that the robotaxi date of June, when it launches, it's going to be a dip toe dip toe, dip toe. It's going to be very, very small. It's going to expand very slowly until the end of this year. I personally don't think that the stock's going to jump based on that. Just because they roll out robotaxi, people will just going to say just the same thing Waymo's doing. Small little, tiny little things, even just a small pilot. It's just not quite going to grasp the whole idea of how revolutionary this is until maybe the beginning of next year when they start expanding to cities. They actually start having serious numbers like 10,000 cars. That's when things start to turn. But I think the bots is what's going to turn everybody excited. If they truly roll out 2,000 to 5,000 bots at the end of this year, I think that could grab attention. But yeah, so earnings, it's built in, right? We've got the lowered expectations. I think. Oh, interesting. You don't think that lowered expectations is built in? I think margins might surprise people that it's going to be a huge cut. That could surprise. But we're expecting it.
What are you saying is built in? The earnings
call
you're saying is built in?
Yeah, no, the expectations that the volume of sales is low for, well, they already said it, right? Second of it, I think that the expectations that it's going to be bad financials, that's built in.
Yeah, well, no, partially built in. It's always partially built in because, you might think the worst case scenario is 40% auto gross margins, and then it turns out to be 9%. Yeah. Okay, that's huge, but it could be. So that's what I'm saying. You don't know, you don't know. Yeah. So I would say an element of it is priced in. An element is not priced in. The actual delta. If it comes in at expectation, okay, then you're right. If it comes slightly higher, slightly lower, that's where, so it's slightly built in. But I would also just say, I think this earnings call is really about three things for different, and everyone has their own thing, but I think Wall Street wants to hear about the new vehicles that are coming out. They're so gung-ho about that. And they want to, Tesla's going to say that there's no problems, but we won't really know until the end of this quarter. But they're going to explain Q1 away by saying, well, we just had a worldwide switchover of the most popular vehicle in the world. Like, what'd you expect? We talked about this in Q4, and we're battery constrained, right? So they're going to say that. Wall Street may or may not buy that. They may be like, okay, well, we're going to have to wait another quarter, and maybe they'll give them some credit on that. So that's one thing. You're right. Robotaxi confirming that that's still on it for June. I think that's a big deal. I really, it really pisses me off when I see some of these say questions. Like, I actually like the first two questions, but I wish someone would have just asked, like, will this be with a safety driver? If so, what's the metric to get the safety driver out? We don't know what this looks like in Texas. Talk to us. Tell us. So I wish there'd be a question around that, because that also tells you about the cybercab. Will the cybercab be part of it? But I think that piece is critical, absolutely critical, Herbert, because if they say anything to delay that, stock goes down. If they say anything about new models not being or just being stripped down, stock goes down. There's lots of things for stock go down. I think Optimus is honestly the last on anybody's minds. I think I disagree with your point on when FSD launches in Austin, they'll be like, oh, well, Waymo's doing that too. I do think that Wall Street understands that Tesla can scale a lot easier than Waymo. I do think that Wall Street understands that Tesla has millions of vehicles out there already, and they already have the Cybercab going. So I think that they understand that this will not be as slow as Waymo, and that Tesla has vertical integration when it comes to pricing. I think Wall Street understands all that. I think the reason Wall Street's been on the sideline, because they've been like, okay, when's it going to happen? June? All right, we'll see. So I think once it happens, they'll be like, okay, things are different now.
I only had one disagreement with any of that, and that was someone said that there would be a slow rollout in Austin in June.
That was Herbert.
That was Herbert. I think that there will be potentially for a day or two, there might be 20 or 40 cars out just to absolutely kind of dial it in for a day or two. But there's going to be an awful lot of people in Austin that are going to be ready for this. that are waiting for it, that are going to want to go out and ride for no reason other than go out and ride. There's going to be people driving into Austin from all over the country that are going to want to do this, because I'm talking to these people that are making plans to be there. And I'm sure you are as well. So
I don't know what you just said. Doesn't a slow rollout by Tesla means thousands, not 100, not 10,000,
okay.
1,000 cars.
Okay, I think
when he said dip toe, what did you interpret that to mean?
Yeah, I mean that the dip toe to me was, you put the cars in Austin, you make sure it's working in Austin, and now you move on to the next city. I don't see it as being, I think that there's, again, you and I talked about this in an upcoming show, where there's a possibility of maybe a lot of geofencing in the software when it first comes out.
Yep.
Certain roads, certain left turns, not any distance. You can't go like 20 miles outside of town or whatever. So there'd be some kind of geofencing when it first starts. So those are the kind of dip toes that I'm thinking it's going to be involved. But I think they will want to give 6-minute service from day one. They're not going to want bad service. And so they're going to have to be ready to up the numbers, put as many cars out as necessary to make sure they're giving that 6-minute service.
Waymo has 700 cars for 7 cities.
Is that what they have? Okay.
Well, they have 1,000 cars now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like you can have, but I expect to be 1,000 cars. I'm not saying small in one city, like you say, but it's still small. It's not this massive.
Oh no, I'd be happy.
All of a sudden Uber competitive.
I'd be very happy with 1,000 cars. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's going to be hundreds, right?
Good.
Yeah.
So is it moving? Are we getting any kind of reaction going back the other way? No.
A little bit.
A little bit, but not much. Yeah.
Yeah, we're out of the 230s.
So
that's good.
Okay, so the other thing is, what do you think happens after the 3 or 4 days? Everybody gets kind of used to whatever happened at the earnings call. We're back to, now we're in June, late May, early June. When does the FOMO start? I'm sorry, we're into late April, early May. When does the FOMO start for June?
FOMO for June. If it hasn't already started now, why would it not happen in June? Like after the earnings call? Like what's going to happen in the earnings call that's going to change why it hasn't started now?
Confirmation.
Literally now.
Confirmation.
Just confirmation. I feels like we're getting the same confirmation. They're not going to release, I don't believe. Do you think so? At the earnings call, they're going to release, here's the pricing, here's how many cars,
No.
I don't think so. I think they're just going to say what they're saying now, which is we're on track for a June release.
But what they could do is, we saw in our earnings deck the app, for example, for the first time. They just threw the pictures in there. So there could be like little things like
demos.
that. Yeah, exactly.
How many miles that they've been putting on up in Berkeley or wherever it is that they're doing the employee cybercab thing. The fact they've had no intervention or no problems at all with that group up in Northern California, something like that.
I also think we need to get another drop of the next version of FSD. We've been waiting for 3 months now, and we're expecting a big jump. But I don't know if we have to have it, but if we did get it, and then we start realizing that there's a magnitude change in interventions, then I think again, what's so hard to estimate is like there's people like us who are so close to it versus just the regular people, investors in general. When does it break through to, capturing the hearts and the interest?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, look, we were just at almost $500, a couple months ago. So
December.
Yeah. So it's. I don't think it's. And you don't get to those levels unless you already think that this is potentially something. Even if you say $100 of that was people just, it's going to go to the moon, whatever, sure. But that was on the back. That really came not from the election, but that move really came from when the new NHTSA secretary, whatever his title is, administrator, wanted to have nationwide regulation when it comes to autonomy. So that's when that big move actually happened. And so the market has essentially spoken that they think Tesla is the market leader. And so to me, confirmation in April that we're still good to go, throwing some pictures, maybe some comments like you're saying, Herbert, that we're getting ready to launch in Austin. Everything still looks good for June. We have people, employees constantly taking rides. Maybe he says, we start off with safety drivers for those, and now we've completely removed the safety driver. Now it's just the Tesla employees in the back. They're going home. They're going to work. Things like that. I think that would be highly bullish, and even then maybe the FOMO doesn't start right after earnings. But I mean, every single day that we get closer and closer to June, it's hard to think that there isn't a move. And I almost wish that one of the say questions would have been, when do we get the next release on FSD?
Yeah.
It's been 3 months. What's going on?
Isn't this odd that we're in April? And how many people would have said that, oh, everybody would have FOMO for June robotaxi? And here we are in April with every single day having somebody from the Tesla AI team confirming that we're on track for June, and yet stocks at 220, wherever.
There you go with that macro again, though. When you've got the risk off, big time right now. What's the VIX at right now?
Isn't that the point, though, right? So the point being that it doesn't matter if June launches. It doesn't matter if there's a great earnings call. It doesn't matter if they launch a new FSD unsupervised. If the risk on is still, everybody's still very concerned about the tariffs and all that.
It will definitely impact it, yes. But you've also seen Tesla run contrary to the market if there is a big enough deal. So now, would that delay it? Probably. It will probably make it harder for it to get back to all-time high if this risk-off environment remains. For sure.
Yeah. Let's take a quick look at the say questions here. These are the top voted questions right now that's going to be asked. The top 10 questions. Tesla typically answers these top 10 questions. It is still going to change by Tuesday next week. But right now, the top voted question is, when will FSD unsupervised be available for personal use or personally owned cars? Now, Randy and I had a bit of a debate on this.
That's a good question. I like that question.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, unless you guys think that FSD. So what is FSD unsupervised? It's a version of a software, but if they launch it and they called it FSD unsupervised, does that mean that I download my car like in June, let's say in July, and then I can unsupervise? I go to sleep. I don't think it's legal. I don't think Tesla's going to cover the insurance, regardless if it's already unsupervised. I don't think it makes sense for them to do this. They're going to roll out Robotaxi, and they're going to allow you to add your car second half of next year. So I don't expect that I will be told in my car to be able to drive FSD unsupervised and sleep in my car until at least the second half of next year. I'll be able to add it to the Robotaxi service, which is all legally covered. But for my own use, that's something different. What do you guys expect?
Let's talk about the legal part, which I think would be fun for a minute anyway. And that would be, I think that right now, if you're driving your car, even though you are supervising, you are still in charge, that if there's an accident and there's damage and that it can be proved that FSD was engaged and that FSD was at fault, I think that Tesla's already on the hook. I don't think there's a lawyer in the world that wouldn't be able to put all of that negligence on the car as opposed to the driver. Yeah, if Tesla didn't have such deep pockets, and maybe you have a deep-pocketed individual that was in the driver's seat, the owner of the car, whatever, yeah, with the lawyer, they would obviously always also sue that person, and they could say they made a contribution to the negligence, and you could, that's called contributory negligence. You could absolutely do that, but I think the reality is that right now a jury would say, no, the car. Even before we get to fully unsupervised, at which point I don't see that there's no chance.
Despite all the disclaimers everywhere.
There won't be disclaimers. They won't even try because there'll be no chance.
There is already now. Right now, there's disclaimers.
Now there is, of course. Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's not going to matter to a jury. Look what the juries are doing right now when somebody drops some coffee in somebody's lap. The person that dropped the coffee into their lap is not contributory. Of course they are, but who pays the 10 billion or whatever it was, 7 million or whatever? I forget the numbers now.
Herbert, smile.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. You're getting way serious here. Why do you think there's a legal issue? Like, why is it any different than how it is now? I mean, like, I don't get that. That makes no sense to me. Like,
so they call it FSC unsupervised. So that's the company telling you that you can go to sleep in the car. You get into an accident. Who pays for that accident? And do you think so? Legally, can a car company can you as a driver in my city go ahead and drive a car sleeping in it? Can I do that legally?
why wouldn't you be able to?
There are literally no laws in the United States.
Insurance companies would love that.
Yeah, right.
If I have USA, Progressive, whatever, and every time I engage FSD, now the onus is on Tesla, they're gonna love that.
Oh no, the onus is on Tesla. So
yeah. So what's wrong with
so
that?
first of all, Tesla would have to cover for that liability, but B, whether or not it's legal for you to operate a vehicle without operating a vehicle, like having a car drive without an operator. I don't know that's legal.
But we're doing that now.
What do you mean? It's not. No, you are operating the vehicle.
No, you're not.
It's called supervised.
Just that doesn't mean you're operating it.
Okay. I don't know the legals. I'm assuming that.
But if you don't know the legal, why are you making that your argument?
Okay. Well, do you know the legals? Are you saying that it's illegal today?
I'm not using that as an argument.
Okay, fine. I'm just saying. I'm bringing up the question, right? I just can't see it.
The general sense has been a lot of people have tried to look into this over time. A lot of people had come to mostly the conclusion that there's no laws in most states.
Yeah, but to clarify, I was one of those people that did that research, and I discovered that there's actually no law that in almost all states, except for 10, that rules. But that's robo taxi services. That's allowing a car to drive using autonomous capabilities. But that is for a service. I don't know if that applies to personal use. You know, you're a driver and you've got a car and you've got insurance and you've got legal responsibilities, whether or not you can sleep in the car and then the policeman won't stop and say, you slept in the car and you're not supposed to be sleeping in the car. I don't know the rules to that, but I would assume that that's an extra rule.
Like, don't get hung up on the law. Okay. Like we don't.
Okay. So let's just forget that. So Nick, do you actually think that there's a possibility that Tesla will roll out FSC unsupervised to us consumers, let us sleep in the car even before robo-taxi, even before all these things, that they will do that 3 months from now, 6 months from now?
Not before June, no.
No, not before June, but let's say
July.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, that they would actually do that.
I think the timeline's probably the same as what they said about us putting our vehicles into the Tesla
which is
fleet.
Second half of next year, which is what I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that because by that point they will have dealt with a lot of bugs. And honestly, I think if you're I could see it where if you are going to be using FSD unsupervised in your own vehicle, I think there will be two kind of requirements. Either one, you're not in the driver's seat, or two, you get your steering wheel and pedals removed.
I'm going to take the unders on that. I'm going to say that
I'll put a big bet on that, Randy. Okay. I'll put a big bet on that.
So my unders are going to be that we will see unsupervised this year. Will it be July, August, September? I don't know, but it'll be this year. The only thing that will be interesting or that will be unique about it will be that there will be, as mentioned earlier on the robotaxi version, there will be some limitations on where it can drive and when it can drive. So there'll be certain roads it can't go on. There'll be certain left turns it can't make. It'll be as safe as they can possibly make it in terms of making 5 right turns if you have to, or 4 right turns in order to not make that left turn. And also with regard to inclement weather, flooding, etc., it will be at the most safe levels. And so those will just, as soon as you turn on FSD unsupervised, you understand that there's going to be those limitations.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and it says here in Washington state, sleeping while driving is considered reckless or negligent driving. That is Code of Washington. They give a code here, or negligent driving as it endangers the safety of others or property. So yes, there is a law that you're not allowed to endanger others. Now, is it legal with Tesla's FSD unsupervised? If it's not fully autonomous, that's legal. The Washington regulatory framework says that a licensed operator to be present under explicitly exempted. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like I said, I just don't imagine that it's legal. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I think you're getting caught up on the legalities of things, and interpreting the law is a messy thing. But I don't agree with that. I think it's no different than what you're doing right now. In fact, I think if it's at that point, it's even safer to have the human not part of it.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that you have probably made more mistakes than FSD has with this version.
Yeah. True.
No, I totally agree. We'll see what happens, what that means.
But again, we don't use the law to determine the future. We use the future to determine what laws make sense for the future.
Okay. All right. Next question here from Say is Tesla still on track for releasing more affordable models this year, or will you be focusing on simplified versions to enhance affordability similar to the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck? Is that a good question?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, actually. And I don't pretend to know, except to have listened. And what I always do, what I tell everybody that I try to do, I don't try to speculate outside of my knowledge unless there's just nothing else to go on. And Elon and other people in the Tesla world have told us what they're going to do. And to me, what they've told us they're going to do is they're going to be at least two more models. And they called them models. They didn't call them trims. So I think it's going to be a different model. But if it isn't, we'll be surprised, or I'll be surprised. That's all. Yeah.
What do you think, Herbert? You think there's going to be new models, right?
Gosh, I flipped. I'm jumping between all three. I think I'm still at this point leaning towards a stripped down version of Model Y. A couple of reasons. One is it's hard for me to believe that Tesla's going to roll out 2 brand new form factors, because that is just at the time when they're trying to double down on robotaxi. And 3, you just saw the Cybertruck rear-wheel drive. They're able to cut out $10,000 from that. Why can't you do something similar to the Model Y and just cut out $5,000-$10,000 from that? But completely different. The inside is completely different. But you've already built it. You already know how to build it. We haven't seen the vehicles. We're talking about a week here, so we'll know. But I guess if I had to, I'd still lean towards a stripped down version versus it being, a mini Model Y or a maxi Model Y.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think, again, I really think that the Cybercab has a lot of influence on the new vehicle. And I don't think it's out of necessity as much as it's just another unique model that they don't have. They don't have anything like a hatchback. And to me, when you look at the Robotaxi or the Cybercab, it is clearly a hatchback.
Wait, so you're on the side of a version, a modified Cybercab version.
Yeah, something that takes elements of
compact,
3 and Y,
2-seater.
and
yeah.
Oh, Well, not two-seater. I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be a four-seater.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be four-seater, 4 doors.
Yeah, you're in the Brian Wong camp, and I kind of like Brian's approach. He thinks it'll be using a lot of the stuff that the cyber cab is going to do.
Of course it will. Yeah.
Like the plastic
Mm-hmm.
doors and fenders and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I that has a lot of appeal to me. I don't know if he's right or not, but it has a lot of appeal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they said, right? They said it's literally, taking elements of the unbox
Mhm.
process. I mean,
Right.
until they tell us otherwise, I don't really like this game of guessing that, oh, they're off or whatever. Like, I see this all the time where people are like, oh, we haven't gotten an FSD version in a while. They must be stuck. Or, oh, they haven't given us an update on XYZ. There must be an issue. Or, oh, we haven't seen the vehicle yet. But we saw other versions of the 3Y and Cybertruck that are getting stripped down. Oh, that must mean that is the new model. Like, what? Like, or maybe they're doing those for their own reasons. Maybe they're just training longer on the model. Maybe they're just trying to make more affordable versions of those models. And maybe we're still not in mid 2025 when they said the model would be released. So maybe there's nothing there. Odds are there's nothing there. The same way with June. Until they tell me that it's not going to happen in June, it's happening in June. Like, you get anxious, you make bad investment decisions, all of that when you think that you can outmaneuver them or you know what's happening internally when you don't. It doesn't do you any good, in my opinion. It makes fun content, I guess, and it creates headlines and sends the stock down, sure. But I think it's noise.
What are you saying about YouTubers? What are you implying?
They're not as bad as analysts.
Oh, that's true. There you go. Well, some are. Holy mackerel. Not the really good guys, though.
All right, let's keep going. Here's the third question, which is a little bit interesting. It's global economic risk. How is Tesla positioning itself to flexibly adapt to global economic risk in the form of tariffs, political biases? I don't know why interesting.
I would just skip that question if I was them.
Yeah, I think they could ask it a different way. I think the emphasis on tariffs, they did mention tariffs specifically. And I do think that this would be in almost any call today, that it's a product related that will have impact from tariffs. This becomes something that they should bring up themselves, and that probably analysts will be asking about. What is the impact? What are you doing? Are you going to onshore more stuff? Are you working to lobby for tariffs that will be acceptable? What's the company's position on the overall? Because it could have significant impact on the final cost of the car.
Well, specifically the batteries being imported from China. That's the biggest impact. If there's a tax there, what would happen? Tariffs. Yeah. And then this one was a big one, right? Does Tesla still have a battery supply constraint? That was noted in the last Q4 earnings call. And how does this change with tariffs? Yeah, this has to be addressed.
For me, I would like to have a 15-minute minimum conversation about batteries, about what's happening with the LG factory, what's happening with the Panasonic factory, what's happening with the battery line that we bought from China over in Reno, what's happening with our own FSD. I mean, there's so many questions.
Yep. Did Tesla experience any meaningful changes in order inflow rate in Q1 relating to all of the rumors of brand damage? That's the only way to know. Was the order inflow rate changed?
I think, I don't know. I think a lot of these questions are silly.
Okay, what questions would you be asking?
Oh, yeah, like I said before, I would be asking, come June with Robo Taxi, will there be a safety driver involved in that? And if so, how, what are the KPIs to get that safety driver out of there? I would ask, based on your best estimates right now, once you launch in Austin, you mentioned several cities by the end of the year. When do you think those would begin, assuming everything goes smoothly? And what would those next 5 cities be? I think that's interesting to know. What else would I ask? I would probably ask, are we, when, I'd ask a similar question. When we put our vehicles into the fleet, you said end of next year. Is that still a confirmed timeline? And if so, would we have to remove the steering wheel and the pedals? How would that work? Do we need a front bumper camera? What are the current logistics that you see would be need, or what are the things we would have to do that you foresee today that we would have to take, understanding that there might be other changes that have to happen in the future. We might have to update the AI5, et cetera. But like, what do you see today that would be necessary? Removing steering wheel and pedals makes sense because it's not like a steer-by-wire where you can you can just render it useless with the software. Those are still mechanical inputs. So you remove those. Okay, now it's good. You can put it out. Could you just put a piece of fiberglass where no one can sit in there? Like, what are the logistics of all that? Do you need the front bumper camera? If so, should we install one now? Should we get going on doing that now at the different service centers so that come that date, we're ready to go to be up and operational? I don't know, questions like that.
Yeah.
Future questions, not this like.
Well, I like that the questions, everything you have asked is associated with Robotaxi. I like that a lot. I think they're a little bit too detailed. What matters to me as a Tesla investor is whether or not Robotaxi and robots are on track, and I'll be asking questions about those. The kind of question you ask, I think, still valid, but they're very, very detailed. I don't know.
But we know everything else. We don't need anything other
just
than
to
details.
confirm, right? We just need to confirm, right, that this is
already
the case.
confirmed. He confirmed a week and a half ago. What do you need? Why are you gonna ask the same question he just tweeted about? Like you're wasting questions. It's annoying. If you would just follow the guy, you can see everything. It's not just him, it's his team. They've all confirmed in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. You've covered it. Like this is insane.
Well, for example, the robots, right? Is there anything that you've come across that it's a rate limiting step for the production of the robots at this point? Anything going to affect the numbers that you've clarified, right? The 5,000, is that still on track? If you feel like those are the things that we need to be, to validate my investment in Tesla, it's Robotaxi and robots. And I just need to understand that they are still not only on track, but it's like, what are the challenges to actually achieve what we're hoping that we'll achieve, right? The 5,000 number.
That's the problem.
For example,
everyone asks questions the way you're talking about. And every time we don't get any new information because they're not specific. They're too broad of a topic. They don't ask a specific question. And then we just get a lot of regurgitation of the same things.
I'm asking, what are the roadblocks, right? What are the things that are possibly holding it up? Is it the actuators? Are they scaled properly? Those are the things I'm looking for. Like, not just, are you going to hit 5,000? It's what are the challenges that you'll need to get overcome to get there? But
but
what
even
what I mean,
then,
like the detailed
you can answer
questions,
that broadly instead of
do I need to bring my car into a service center to get that camera put in? It's not a big deal.
No,
not to my investment in Tesla.
Well, but aren't
so
you
it's
the one
like
curious about
it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's not curiosity. It's more about, does it matter to the business scaling up to hitting these numbers that we're hoping?
I think it absolutely matters. Robotaxi is only going to scale with our vehicles, not with Cybercab. Initially, for the first 2 years, it'll scale with our vehicles. I think it's huge. The second they start allowing us to put our vehicles in there, that's when you know that they are really scaling.
Yeah,
because that's when they are hitting limits and they need more vehicles.
I'd like to know if there's going to be a mega factory starting in India, since there was an announcement of engineers for battery cells being hired in India. So is that going to be mega factory number 4? That would be a very big one in terms of the investment.
I imagine so.
Well, I mean, each mega factory is the equivalent of 300,000 Model 3s. Assuming the same size, assuming the same 10,000 per year. So when you're looking, I would think that the street would be asking that more than they care about this Model Q, quite frankly, because each time you open one of those factories, they can do 10,000 units of the megapacks. You're adding 300,000 vehicles, and it's not nearly as hard or as uncertain. It's like, oh, you can put that up in 9 months. It's going to work, and you've got the TAM to sell to. The marketing is a tenth of the difficulty.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing Tesla sell off right now?
237, right? It's
Yep,
237. It's
237,
another $3 down.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
How's
we'll
that
see what
compared to the
happens.
rest of the market, though?
The whole market's going the same. Yeah.
Oh, the whole market. Yeah.
Well, so you got.
Well,
so
we're down 6.6%. What is the rest of the market about?
So the Nasdaq's down 4, and the normal beta is 2 at least. So Tesla's actually outperforming right now.
Yeah, nicely put. Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
here.
But this will be interesting. 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is kind of we'll know what's actually happening. This might be a fake out, or this might be a bigger drop coming.
Yeah. So like within the next hour, we'll see if it bounces back or things happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any-
normally right at 3 and then right at 3:30, you see big moves
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I
for
didn't
momentum
know that.
wise,
I didn't know that. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
especially going into a holiday weekend.
Well, you said tomorrow is options.
Yeah, options expire tomorrow, which is a very rare. You don't options normally expire on Fridays, so they're expiring tomorrow. So a lot of the move you see right now is probably reflective of that. People de-risking. I think of how many people took off tomorrow. So they're
Yeah.
going to go on a 3-day weekend. They don't want to have things on. You throw in
Yeah.
Jerome Powell's comments. I mean, it's just there's a lot.
Markets out. So yeah, so here we are. It's Wednesday. Tuesday, we're going to have the earnings call on this channel. We'll cover it live. We'll have a pre-game show. We'll have during the actual kernel call, company update, and afterwards as well. So watch out for that on Tuesday. Any last thoughts here? Basically, it's pretty choppy. Here we are, but it's coming. We actually will have a company update this Tuesday. So hopefully we'll get more information like we normally do on these calls.
Not investment advice. Buy.
All right. Oh boy. But yeah, so anything else? I mean, this Tuesday, like you say, maybe there isn't anything necessarily new, but I think we will hear about the more affordable vehicles. That's the critical thing.
Really,
We're now May, right? Aren't you?
yeah,
May?
They'll have to say something because they'll be asked.
Yeah.
I'll also say
They can say we're not going to say anything.
Yeah, there's a chance that they talk about a licensing agreement.
Oh, there's always that. Gary Black would be so happy.
I think there's a strong. It's going to happen on one of these days, and it's going to happen on the earnings call.
Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Appreciate you joining us this week. Randy filling in for Brian White. He's in China right now. He will be away as well next week, but then we'll have him back, and we're looking forward to all of his videos. Thank you again, Nick. Appreciate everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Now,